The cold comes up through the planks first. Bare feet, splinters, a draft under the healer's door. I'm standing on the threshold of old Mara's hut and I haven't gone in yet. Wren's hand is in mine, small, damp. She's shivering and I can feel each shiver climb the bones of my wrist like a struck rail. Then the world turns on. I don't mean light. I mean the air starts to ripple. Every living thing in this hut throws a wave, and I read them in another life in steel, with a clipboard and a dead man's certainty. The hearth coal hums low and orange. Mara's old heart drums a slow blue swell across the room. I see them, standing waves, hanging in the air, holding their shape. My pulse goes sideways. This is impossible. This is a gift I never asked a god for. I almost laugh. Then I look down at my sister. There's a thing behind her ribs, and it is screaming, a red knot of chi, fist-sized, spinning where her core should sit calm. It doesn't hold its shape. It judders. The wave crests and won't settle, slamming the same broken note again and again into the cage of her chest. I know that note. God help me, I know it in my teeth before I can name it. 47 hertz. The number lands like a hand around my throat. That's the frequency. That's the one. That's the wave I watched walk my bridge apart, span by span, while I screamed into a radio nobody heard. It killed me. It is the last thing I felt before the cold river took my mouth. And it is here, now, alive, eating the center of a 6-year-old girl who still has a milk tooth loose in front. I drop to my knees on the threshold. The jolt rattles up my spine. Ren feels me fall, and her face crumples. She doesn't understand. She tugs my sleeve, mouths something, slow, careful, the way she always does so the broken boy can swatch her lips. What's wrong? That's what she shapes. What's wrong? Everything. The thing in your chest is the thing that drowned me. I press my palm flat to her sternum. The red wave hits my hand through skin and bone, and I feel it. The exact judder, the exact pitch, the rhythm of a structure already failing and not yet fallen. Under my fingers, there's a crack. I can't see it with eyes. I feel it the way I once felt a hairline fracture sing wrong under a sounding hammer. It widens. Slowly, but it widens. A shadow falls over us both. Old Mara has come to the door. Her mouth moves and the sound of her voice arrives in my jaw as a flat, tired vibration, the buzz of someone who has said the same gentle thing too many times. I look up. I read her lips. There's nothing to be done, child. Bring her in. Keep her warm. 40 days, maybe less, and she'll go. 40 days. She turns away already, reaching for a kettle, because to her this is finished. To her, my sister is weather. Something that simply passes. She didn't see the wave. She can't. She has no idea the failure has a number, that the number is mine, that I carried it out of a river and into this small, wrong body for a reason I refuse to believe is cruelty. I tighten my grip on Ren's hand. She squeezes back, trusting, because I am the only wall between her and the dark. The red knot slams again. 47, 47, 47. I read steel my whole life. I read the crack before the bridge knew it was dying, and I could not stop that one. I was too late, too sure, too proud at the wrong moment. This time I'm early. This time I can see the wave the masters can't, in a body they think can't fight, can't speak, can't warn a soul. So tell me, if I know exactly the note that's killing her, what stops me from tuning it back true? Chi deviation. I catch the word off her lips, careful and slow. Mara has set the kettle down. She crouches beside Ren, knees popping, and takes my sister's wrist in 2 papery fingers. She counts. Her lips move with the number, the old reflex of a woman who has measured 1,000 fading pulses. I count, too, a different clock. I lay my palm back on Ren's sternum and let the red wave hit me. Each crest is a tick. I clock them against the memory still living in my hands of DJ, the way I once timed a girder's sway before the cars rolled on. The judder is steady, cruelly steady. The crack opens a hair with every 47th slam, and I hold that rate in my skull and run the arithmetic cold. 41 days, not 40. 41, and the last 3 are screaming. Mara's lips start again. Even the tower healers couldn't unknot this. I've watched masters try. The core deviates, it cracks, the child goes. No hand is steady enough. She pats Ren's knee like she's closing a drawer. Steady enough. I nearly choke on it. She thinks steadiness is a thing you're born holding. I know it's a measurement. I spent a whole life with a stylus over a trembling line, reading the exact instant a structure quits lying about how strong it is. Ren looks up at me. Her loose tooth shows when she breathes through her mouth. She doesn't know the word chi deviation. She knows my face, and my face is doing something that frightens her, so she squeezes my fingers and waits for me to fix it. The red knot slams. The crack widens another hair under my thumb. Mara rises. To her, the visit is finished. She'll give us a warm corner and a name for the thing, and in 41 days she'll wash my sister, wrap her, and call it a mercy it wasn't longer. No. I press both hands flat. I find the pulse of the broken note, and I start tapping, soft, against Ren's ribs, my fingertip landing between the core's beats, off the crest, down into the trough. A damping pulse, the first counterweight. No chalk yet, no breath counts measured, just a fingertip and a number and a body everyone in this valley swears is empty. The wave doesn't settle, not yet, then it flinches. For one beat, it hesitates against my tap, and I feel it through bone. The structure noticing resistance for the very first time. That flinch is everything. Hopeless is a word. Mara handed it to me like a blanket, gentle, already grieving. I won't wear it. I take my sister's face in both hands and make her look at me. I tap the rhythm against her cheekbone so she feels it ride up through her skull, slow, sure, a metronome only the two of us will ever share. Then I decide, kneeling on a healer's cold floor with 41 days on the clock, I'm not here to mourn this note or bury it kindly. I'm going to damp it out of her, beat by stubborn beat, until that wave can never again find the pitch that drowned me. Boots on the frozen path. I feel them before the door even moves. 3 heavy strikes coming up through the floorboards, into my shins, into my back teeth. Then the door bangs in, cold pours across the floor. A man fills the frame, tall, dry, a ledger clamped under one arm and a tin badge at his collar, a red tower stamped into the metal. He knocks snow off his boots like he owns the threshold. Mara goes rigid by the kettle. Her wave pulls in tight, that warm orange swell shrinking down to hide. The man's eyes pass over me and keep going. To him, I'm a stool, a sack of millet. A broken thing left in the corner. Good. Let me be furniture. He says something to Mara. I catch it off his lips. Health census, Towers orders, every soul, every child. He thumbs the ledger open and wets a finger. Then I see his core. Most folk hum one ragged note, off true and honest about it. His is banded. Red ring, inside red ring, inside red ring. All turning the same way, tight as a wound spring. I've never seen the pattern, but I know a stamp when I read one. The tower presses it into the hands that collect for it. He's not counting the sick to mend them. He's shopping. He crouches by a thin boy near the hearth, lays 2 fingers to the kid's neck. He isn't taking a pulse. He's tasting the wave under the skin, weighing it, pricing it. He writes nothing, moves on. Ren coughs. The red knot slams behind her ribs. 47. And throws a crest so sharp it spikes off her sternum and off into my palm where it rests against her back. His banded head turns. His eyes find her. He comes. Crouches in front of my sister, reaches 2 fingers toward her throat the way Mara did an hour ago, except his touch is a buyer's touch. His rings spin faster, hungry, reaching to read what's wrong with her. I move. Not big. Just my hand, sliding flat to her spine, finding the metronome we made on this very floor, off the crest, down into the trough. Tap. The wave flinches against my fingertip. Flattens. The bright, deadly spike folds down into something dull, tired, ordinary, a cold, a nothing. He holds his fingers there a breath longer, frowns, feels a sleepy child with a cough and a loose front tooth, and not one note worth his ink. Ren stares at his belt buckle and breathes through her mouth and doesn't know she's being sold or not sold. She just leans back into my hand because the tapping means me. He stands. He's already 3 huts down inside his skull. I keep tapping. I keep her dull. Because now I've read the whole shape of it. The tower doesn't wait for cracked cores to die quiet in a warm corner. It comes through and harvests them green. A child running too hot is a coin to these people. Mara's mercy burial was never the worst thing on Ren's clock. At the door, he stops, pulls a stub of red chalk from his coat, and drags a small circle on Mara's doorpost. Taps it twice with one knuckle. A claim. A return address. Then he turns those banded eyes back into the room, finds Ren one last time, and mouths it slow enough for even the broken boy in the corner to read. Next moon, have the children counted. The crack in her core opens another hair under my thumb. 41 days, and now a man with rings for a heart is coming back to count. The door's still shuddering in its frame when I drag a cold coal from the dead edge of the hearth. I drop to the boards beside Ren and start to draw. A long line first, head to heel, straight through her. Then 2 more off her wrist, angled wide, bending back to meet again past her hip. I'm building 2 roads for the same wave, one short, one long, so when its echo and itself arrive at the far end a half beat apart, they meet wrong and cancel. Kill a note with its own reflection. I learned that on a footbridge that sang itself apart while I stood there, too sure, too slow. Not tonight. Mara hovers over me. "What is that?" she mouths, one hand at her throat. I can't answer with a mouth I don't own. I take Ren's wrist instead. Her pulse jumps up into my thumb. Fast, bright, that killing 47 riding right under the skin. I lay my finger flat across it. Tap! Off the crest, down into the trough. Off into! She blinks at me, slow. "Cold hands," she mouths and almost grins, the loose front tooth wobbling. I press 3 taps into her palm. Hold still. She holds, then I work. The coal map starts to do its job. Each time the red knot throws its spike, the crest runs my 2 roads, splits, comes back into itself a beat behind, and the 2 halves eat each other. I feel the whole thing through the floor, up my shins, into my back teeth. The spike that wants to climb stalls, folds. The knot behind her ribs stops screaming upward and only hums. Hours. The candle drowns in its own fat. Mara feeds the fire and stops asking. She just watches a broken boy crawl around her daughter on the floor, coal to the elbow, tapping a wrist like he's counting out the last of the world's time. My thumb goes numb. I keep tapping. I keep one finger on her sternum, riding the hairline crack, waiting for it to open another notch the way it has all day. It doesn't. Not a hair. The thing that has been splitting since I woke in this body holds dead still under my fingertip. Ren's breathing changes, slows, deepens. Her wave settles into a long, low blue swell I could float a barge across, and she sleeps the way she hasn't slept in days. Gray light leaks under the door. Mara kneels down across from me. She takes Ren's other wrist between 2 fingers, the same grip she used at the diagnosis, and counts. I watch the count move on her lips. 40. 41. She stops. Starts again. Counts a 3rd time, slower, her brow folding. Her hand begins to shake. She looks at the coal lines on her floor. She looks at my raw, blackened thumb still ticking against the boards. She looks at the child breathing soft and easy. the child she measured for a grave before the sun went down. "It slowed," she mouths. The pulse slowed. The crack, "Voo DJ." Her fingers go to Ren's chest, press, hunt for the gap that should be wider by now. They find nothing moving. No healer in the tower has hands that steady. "Me no master alive." She doesn't finish it. Old Mara, who handed me hopeless like a blanket an hour after dawn yesterday, gets off her knees, and then goes lower, down in front of a deaf-mute boy with a lump of coal in his fist. She folds my tapping hand into both of hers and presses my knuckles to her forehead. "Teach me," she mouths against them. "Whatever you are, teach me." 1. The clock still runs, but now it isn't only my hands on it. Mara sends me to the well while Ren still sleeps. The bucket's barely off the rope when the lane goes wrong under my feet. Footsteps, one man, unhurried. The frozen dirt carries his weight up through my heels. Even patient, never once hunting for balance. Nobody walks a starving village like that. Not in the cold season, not toward Mara's door. I turn with the rope still in my fist. He's halfway down the lane already, between the chicken runs, a thin man in good gray wool. No tin badge, no ledger under his arm. He stops at the potter's wife and bends a little, smiling, and I catch the shape of it off his lips. "Any children poorly this winter, coughing, slow to thrive?" She wipes her hands on her apron. She points. Down the lane. Toward us. Here's how it goes with me. I read the wave before I read the man. A whole corps sits like one struck bell. A single knot, one true hum, all of it the person's own. His doesn't. His center has been split straight down the middle and pressed shut again, the seam welded crooked and dark. Around that scar hang knots that don't belong to him. 4, 5 small trapped notes, each pulsing out of time with the body that carries them. Stolen pitches, children's pitches. He cracked himself open on purpose and sealed himself back into a jar. The jar has room left. The census man only counted us. He chalked his circle, priced the children green, and walked off to fetch someone else's hand. This is the hand. This is who the green ones get picked for. He reaches the well, crouches down to my height, slow, the way you'd lower a cup of milk to a stray dog. Up close, his welded core thrums against my teeth. Off. Ugly. Every trapped note a half step from screaming. He mouths it kind and clear, so even a broken boy can follow. "Hello there, Vask Corin. I've come to help the sick little ones get well. I keep my face stupid. I keep the rope in my hand." Behind the weld, one of the empty rings is humming. The gap he hasn't filled yet. The notch he came north to plug. I know that pitch. I wrote it down into the trough all last night with a numb thumb. I watched it walk my bridge apart, girder by girder, while I stood there too sure to move. The empty slot in him sits at 47 hertz. It's cut to the exact shape of my sister. "You keep a warm house for a poor one, mother." Vask says it off his lips, settling onto Mara's good stool like he owns it. We're back inside her hut now, the door shut against the cold, the hearth ticking low. Ren sleeps on behind the curtain in the corner. Mara set me by the kindling basket the moment he followed me up the lane, and there I stay, knees in the dirt, eyes gone dull, a lump of coal still closed in my fist. Furniture. A broken boy who can't hear a word. That's the lie keeping me breathing. Let him swallow it whole. Mara pours him barley water. Her hands don't shake. "We bury more than we raise out here," she says, careful, flat. He sips, sets the cup down without a sound I'd ever catch. "I heard there's a coffin one, a girl, slow to thrive." The smile doesn't move when his mouth does. "Healers like you find the cracked ones early. Children sicken." She shrugs at the fire. "Some mend on their own." He leans in. I watch the question form. "And the ones who don't?" Here's the thing about playing dead in the corner. I can't hear him work her. But his chest drives the floor planks, and the planks drive my knees, and I count his breathing the way I once timed a swaying girder with a stylus. In, hold, out, slow, steady as a sleeping man, too steady. Nobody sits that still inside a body that wrong. So I stop watching his face and watch his core instead. The welded seam pulses against my teeth, off and ugly, same as at the well. The 4 trapped notes drag at their tethers, and there, one of them slips, just a hair. The weld around it darkens, flutters, lets the stolen pitch bleed half a step before he hauls it back. His jar is leaking. I lean closer over the kindling, dumb as a stump, and I read the crack in him I missed in the lane. The empty ring at 47 hertz isn't only hungry, it's pulling the others off true. His whole sealed center lists toward that gap, straining the welds that hold the rest. Every breath he spends charming Mara, a little more of him slides toward coming apart. He isn't collecting for the tower's ledger, not anymore. He's patching a hull that's already taking water. He needs the slot filled, or he ends up exactly like the children he packed inside himself, split, screaming, half a step from gone. He's dying, slower than my sister, but he's dying. I almost smile into the coal dust. I don't. Furniture doesn't smile. Mara keeps her voice mild and her answers short, steering him toward the mill house, the Tanner's twins, anywhere but the curtain at her back. She's buying time. She doesn't know her own floor is telling me his secret through my kneecaps. Then his breathing snags. 1 beat, gone. The rhythm I've been counting drops a stitch. His head comes up off the question, slow, and turns. Not toward Mara, not toward me, toward the curtain. Behind it, Wren breathes her long, low swell, that settled blue note I spent all night damping flat, pulsing soft, and even at the 1 pitch, his crack is screaming to be fed. His welded core leans toward it. I feel it lean. The hungry ring brightens, reaches, and the whole leaking jar of him tips after my sister like a man tilting his ear to a sound only he can hear. He stands off the stool. Mara rises with him, a half step too slow. That one, he mouths, eyes fixed on the cloth. The quiet one, behind there. He's already moving. Let me see that one before I go. Mara's hip hits the table before he's 2 steps from the curtain. Barley water jumps the cup and runs. She's between him and Wren now, broad and slow, 1 hand flat on the corner post. She's not for showing. Her lips stay steady. Sleeping fever. You'll wake her into a fit. Vask stops. The smile holds. His leaking core leans past her anyway, tilted at that blue note behind the cloth, the hungry ring stretching toward my sister, straight through the old woman's shoulders. He doesn't shove past her. Somehow that's worse. He steps back instead, sets the cup down without a ripple, and looks at Mara the way a man looks at a deed he means to collect. Of course, he mouths. I won't trouble the child. Then he walks out her door. Furniture carries kindling, so I haul the basket out after him into the gray, knees loud on the frozen ruts, coal dust gritting my teeth. The lane has filled. Word runs fast in a place this size. The millwright's wife, the tanner in his stained apron, 2 water boys, all of them stopped dead in the cold to watch the tower man at Mara's threshold. He reaches into the gray wool. Out comes a stub of red, not chalk this time, a fat wax stick, thumb thick. He turns to the doorpost. The old claim ring is already there, a faded scout's circle. Vask sets his wax beside it and bears down, dragging a fuller mark, a closed loop, a slash through it, 3 teeth crowning the top. I feel the whole street go still through my soles. 20 people and not 1 chest drives the ground. He finishes the brand and faces them. He speaks slow so even the back of the lane can read it. This house owes the Crimson Tower a harvest. His thumb taps the wet mark. 1 child, by the next moon. The tower has counted it. The tower will come for it. I read every word off his mouth. I read the street, too. Hunting 1 tremor of no, 1 floorboard of protest somewhere under all those boots. Nothing. The tanner finds his own shoes fascinating. The millwright's wife pulls her shawl across her mouth and turns half away. A water boy backs up a step into the trough. The mark dries on the post, and not one soul in this valley will say it's wrong. Mara stands in her own doorway with her hand still on the post, a finger's width from the red. She knelt to me last night. She begged to learn the trick. Now she can't lift her chin at a man holding a wax stick. Vask pockets the stub. He looks once at the shut door, at the curtain he never got to pull, and his hungry ring brightens one last time toward the note behind it. "Next moon," he says. To no one. To all of them. Then he turns and walks back down the lane unhurried, a dying man who just wrote my sister's name on a door in the tower's own red, and behind the cloth Wren breathes on at 47, sleeping, owned, barely 40 days of her left, and her price already painted where the whole street can stand and watch it dry. I don't run. I drop to one knee by the well frame instead, right there in the open lane, like a boy worn flat by hauling kindling. The upright is old oak, squared, sunk deep in mud the cold has turned to iron. Frozen ground carries a wave better than warm ground ever will. I learned that on a January span once. The whole deck ringing under my boots before it ever rang under anyone's ears. Vask is 15 steps off now, his gray back getting smaller. I read him through my knees. That listing core. The welded jar tilting as he walks. The leak whining off true somewhere under his ribs. Every dying thing has a pitch it wants to fall toward, and his wants to slide flat. I find the number. I hold it in my fist like a chisel. 3 taps. That's all the ground gives me before someone looks down and wonders. I lay 2 fingers and a knuckle to the oak. First tap. Soft. I'm not striking the post. I'm asking the frozen lane how it answers, feeling the wave run out under the ruts and climb back up my shin a half beat late. He doesn't break stride. Second tap. I shift my knuckle a thumb's width and match his leak dead on, driving the off-pitch down the post, out through the iron mud, straight at the boots walking away from me. His step stutters. 1 boot lands wrong. Third tap. I bear down and hold it, and the whole lane hums one ugly note up into a dying man who spent everything he ever stole keeping that note sealed. His welded seam catches it like a struck rim. Vask stops dead. His back goes rigid. I feel his center lurch off its weld, the trapped pitches inside the jar all sloshing at once toward the crack I just lit, and his stance folds, one knee buckling, a hand flying out to the tanner's fence rail for something to grab. He coughs, not air, chi. A thread of it tears out of his mouth and hangs red in the cold, smoking. Wrong. The street's own breath gone visible. 20 people see it. The millwright's wife chokes into her shawl. A water boy points and snatches the hand back down. Vask hauls himself off the rail. Spit shines on his gray wool. He spins wild now, the smooth healer gone, and he hunts the lane, the post, the well, the faces, the frozen ruts, searching for whatever just walked into his chest uninvited. His eyes cross over me, a spent deaf boy on his knees by a bucket. Furniture, nothing to count. They keep sliding past. The hunger is gone out of his ring, though. The leaning's gone. For the first time, the welded jar of him isn't reaching for my sister behind that curtain. It's clenched white around its own breaking seal, listening to a valley it suddenly cannot read. He drags a sleeve across his mouth. He doesn't speak now. No more slow words for the back of the lane. He walks off fast, no swagger left in the step, and his core whines flat all the way down until the cold swallows the last of him. I get up. I pick up my basket. The brand's still drying red on Mara's door behind me, but the man who painted it just spat his own stolen breath in the dirt in front of his whole audience. And he's leaving certain, deep in that rotting jar, that something in this valley said no. 20 faces locked on the red, smoking in the dirt. Nobody's watching a curtain. That's my whole window, and it's already closing. I'm through Mara's door before she turns from the post. Wren weighs nothing. 6 years old, and half of that is the knot in her chest. I roll her into the gray blanket, fold the cloth over her face, and carry her out the back way along the goat track while the lane still gawks at what Vask coughed up. The old rice shrine sits up the slope past the dead orchard. Nobody prays here now. The roof leans, one beam burned black, and the door hangs off a single iron pin that groans when I shoulder it open, cold inside, dust and mouse musk. Good. Empty means nobody to point a finger. I lay her behind the toppled altar stone. Her core still holds View DJ, that low blue swell, the crack dead still beneath it. I set 2 fingers to her sternum to be sure. The number grinds in my teeth anyway. She's safe for an hour. An hour is not a plan. I need steel and a hand that knows how to swing it. I know exactly where one's drowning. Gon's lean-to backs onto the shrine's north wall. Half the reason I picked this slope. I duck under the sailcloth flap, and there he is. Slumped against the stone, a clay jar wedged between his knees, a long sword in a split scabbard lying in the straw like firewood he forgot to burn. I read his core the second I'm through the gap. Fractured. A hairline running the seat of him, weeping chi, slow and gray. The drink isn't killing him fast enough. The crack is doing the real work. He cracks one eye. Out, beggar. I don't go out. I drop to a knee on his packed dirt and lay my knuckle flat to the floor. Find his weeping note. First tap, soft, asking the ground how it answers. Second, I match his leak dead on. Third, I bear down and drive his own break back up through the earth into the pit of his belly. He chokes. The jar tips and glugs into the straw. His hand flies below the navel, right where the hairline runs, and his eyes go wide and wet, because for one breath he felt the thing, eating him from inside. What, Jay? His voice tears. What did you do to me? I dip a finger in the spilled liquor. On the plank by his knee I draw 2 slow marks, a crack, then a seam pulled shut over it. He stares at the wet lines. You're the mute. Mara's stray? He laughs and it comes out wrong. You can't even DG. I draw again, under the first. A hand, a blade. Then I point at the sword, rotting in his straw, and back at his gut, and I lay my whole palm over the wet mark for the closed seam. His breath's gone shallow. He understands it. A trade. His break for that steel. He looks at the sword. He looks at the boy who just made his own death sing under his ribs. He drags himself up the wall, wincing, one hand never leaving his belly. Close enough now I can smell the rot of him under the drink. You mend that, he rasps. Not a question, a man asking the dark whether it lied to him. I press my thumb hard into the wood once, over the seam mark. I hold his eyes and I don't blink. Yes. Hand me the blade, old man, and I'll close the crack your bottle's been chasing for years. 40 days from now, you'll still be breathing. And behind that altar stone, so will she. You drink because you can't feel your own fracture. I just made you feel it. Now feel what it's worth to have it gone. The clay jar drains into the straw, glug by glug, and neither of us reaches to stop it. Gon keeps his back to the cold stone, one hand still clamped under his navel. I kneel in close. I flatten both palms, one on his sternum, one low over the seat of the hairline. His core sits flat. A note dragged half a tone under true, weeping gray out the seam where it sags. I know this pitch. It's the drag I felt in my own ribs the night the span went sour and folded under me. I hate this pitch. First, I have to find true. I tap his sternum once, listen through the bone. The flat note hums back, sullen and low. I tap again, harder, and lean my whole weight into matching it, not driving it up into his belly this time, just holding the wave steady so it quits bleeding sideways. His breath saws. It's cold, he rasps. Why's it gone cold? Jay, I don't answer. Can't. I start to climb the note. Up, a hair. I press the wave higher, the way I'd crank tension back into a slack cable until it sang on number. His core fights me, snags, slips flat. I bear down again, higher. The gray weeping thins to a thread. The seam draws its lips together under my palm. Half a tone, and the whole rotten jar of him groans up onto true pitch and G. The crack stops. It just stops. The leak shuts. Under my hand, his core quits sagging and sits up round and blue, ringing clean on its own number for the first time in years. Gon goes rigid. His eyes blow wide. He grabs my wrist, not to throw it off, to pin it there. It's... His voice splits down the middle. It doesn't hurt. I lift my hands away. I sit back on my heels and let him have it alone. He pats his own belly, slow, the way you'd pat a horse you were sure was dead an hour ago. His breath comes deep, even. The gray's drained out from under his skin. He looks 20 years lighter and scared half out of his mind. Then he reaches for the sword. The split scabbard rattles as he drags it across his knees. He sets a thumb to the guard and pushes the blade up an inch. His core, clean now, true now, pours. Chi runs the steel. It sheets down the old pitted edge, bright and unbroken, no stutter, no gray, a clear current finding every notch and nick in the metal and filling them. The lean-to thrums with it. I feel it come up through the dirt into my knees. The man hasn't pushed a clean thread through that blade in years, and now it lights the dark shrine wall a hard, living blue. Gon stares at his own glowing edge. His mouth works. A drop runs off his chin, and it isn't liquor. "What are you?" he breathes. I reach down and tap the wet drawing VG to the crack, the seam pulled shut. Then I point at the north wall, through the stone, to the altar where Ren lies with that same flat note dragging her under. His head turns slow toward the wall. Back to me, and I watch it land in him, the whole shape of it. The deaf boy didn't trick a drunk into trading his sword. The thing is real. It put a true edge back in a grown man's fist, which means it's not a child's fluke. Not a one-night damping I prayed would hold. It works. On anyone, on her. His hand wraps the hilt, and for the first time it doesn't shake. The line lurches when a man cuts in front of the bread seller's wife and plants himself on my shrine step. Noon now. The gray's burned off. Word ran the whole valley before I could think to stop it, and a crooked line of the sick bends down past the broken gate. Gon stands in the doorway with the blue sword across his arms. Sober. Huge. Nobody's argued with him yet. This one does. "My chest," the man says, thumping it. "Cracked bad. Heal me, boy. Quick!" I kneel. I lay a palm on his sternum. Nothing weeps back. His core sits whole. Round, sealed, healthy as a river stone. No drag, no gray, no seam anywhere. A man with a sound core does not shove two grandmothers aside to go first. Then I feel the other thing riding under it. A second note. Faint. Off. Threading his pulse where it shouldn't be. I know that pitch. I felt it last in Vask's split chest, the band hum, the chord those stolen children sing through the harvester's welded jar. This man's worn the tower's mark long enough to ring with it. I take my hand off him, slow. He smiles. "So, am I dying?" I press my thumb flat to his coat over the breast where a hard square hides under the wool. The smile slips. "Boy of Gigi." I rip the coat open. A folded oilcloth drops. I pin it to the stone before he can snatch it and slam my open palm down on Gon's boot. "Va, Gigi." 3 hard beats through the floor, the only voice I own. Gon moves. The glowing edge comes down level with the man's throat, and the whole line goes dead quiet. "Up," Gon says. The man stands. I unfold the oilcloth on the cold step. It's a map. My valley, drawn in a neat clerk's hand. Every house squared off, some doors crossed out, some ringed. Beside each ring, a small number, a pitch, 31, 40, 47, 47, ringed twice beside the square that's Mara's house. Under every ring, a name. Not the sick down this line. The children. Every cracked core kid in the valley. Measured, sorted, waiting in ink. A grandmother leans in and reads her grandson's name aloud. Her voice breaks on the second sound of it. The informer's hand drifts toward his belt. I feel his core wind tight to push kui. I stamp my heel onto the oilcloth and drive the rhythm into the stone. And Gon reads me without a word, steps through, lays the flat of the bright blade across the man's wrist before the strike can leave his fist. "Don't," Gon says. He freezes. Sweat beads his lip. The band note in his chest flutters, panicked, and I want to laugh. They planted him to count us, and not one of them guessed the deaf boy could feel the leash knotted round his neck. In the corner of the map, a closed loop, a slash, 3 teeth. Vask's brand, same mark drying on Mara's door right now. So Vask wasn't the start of it. Someone walked these lanes first, door to door, and weighed our children one note at a time. Vask was only the hand sent to collect what this man already tallied. I lift my eyes off the map. Past the line of the sick, at the broken gate, 2 strangers I never clocked stand very still. They've seen the oilcloth open in my hands. They look at each other. Then they turn together and walk fast back down the track toward the village to tell the tower its count just got found. "You can't teach this," the old man says. "Born with it, or not at all." He limps up the line on a spear worn pale and smooth. Gray topknot, scarred jaw. He's been listening since I pinned the informer to the step. Now he plants the spear butt on my shrine stone and looks down at me, jaw working like he wants me gone. I don't argue. I can't. I find a nub of white chalk dropped in the dust and I draw. A circle on the dark step. A core. Inside it, I draw the standing wave I see in anyone living, the key humming its true note around a center. Beside it, I draw a sick 1. Same circle, but the wave folds, the ring splits where the note runs flat. The spearman snorts. "Pictures, children draw." I beckon the nearest woman in line. Plain, work-thick hands, a cough rattling loose in her chest. No gift in her at all. I felt it when she shuffled close, a core like wet clay, dull and slow. The kind every master in the valley waves off. I take her wrist. I set 2 of her fingers flat on her own sternum. Then I tap, 3 beats, slow. I make her copy them on the chalk circle until her hand keeps the rhythm without me. I sign with my fingers, breathe down, push here, hold, no words, just shapes a body can follow. Her brow knots. She taps. She breathes wrong, and I press her hand slower, harder, until the beat steadies. Under my palm, her core stirs. Not a flare, not the golden bloom the storytellers sell. A dull wave leaning a hair truer with each beat she keeps. The seam doesn't close. She isn't cracked, just clogged, tired, but the note steps up. Cleaner. It climbs through the bone of her wrist into mine. She gasps. The cough loosens. Color crawls back up her neck. I sign, again, alone. She does it. Same 3 beats, same push, same small, true climb. The spearman has stopped sneering. He crouches. His knees crack when he drops. He stares at the chalk, at her fingers keeping their plain, stubborn count, at a woman with no more gift than a fence post tuning her own breath straight. "That's not cultivation," he says. The scorn's gone thin. I look him dead in the eye. I tap the circle. I tap her chest. I tap his. Same, same, same. He's quiet a long while. Then he turns the spear in his hands and lowers himself onto the cold step. He sets 2 scarred fingers against his own chest, where, by his own law, nothing of worth ever lived. "Show me the beats," he says. Slow. "I'm old." I pick up the chalk and start again. The light slants long off the shrine roof. The spearman has the 3 beats clean now. Tap, 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 slow. His scarred fingers steady on his own chest. The wet clay woman watches him and grins like she taught him herself. Maybe she did. Then the grandmother, who read her grandson's name off the map, drops to her knees in front of me. She presses her forehead to the cold step. "Spirit child?" she breathes. "Sent to us." No. I take her by the elbows and pull. She's heavier than she looks and won't rise, so I crouch into her face and shake my head, hard twice. I don't want her brow in the dust. A forehead in the dust builds nothing. I pick up the chalk. Worship washes off by morning. I need walls. I draw a line down the dark stone. One side I mark who mends, the other who guards. Under the first, I tap the wet clay woman's chest, then the spearman's WDJ. They keep the beats. They teach the beats. Under the second, I point the chalk at Gon in the doorway, blue blade still laid across the informer's wrist. Gon reads it in one look. "Door's mine," he says. I split the line of the sick into threes. Each three gets one beat keeper. I sign it slow. You learn it. You teach the next. No one waits on me alone. A bridge that hangs from one rivet held by one hand isn't a bridge. It's a trap waiting to drop, and I have died once already proving it. The grandmother is on her feet now, watching the chalk. I press the white nub into her hand and tap the map, tap the long column of names. Hers is the steadiest voice in the yard. So I make her the one who reads, who calls the roster, who takes the count we tore off the tower and turns it into ours. She stares at the chalk. She stares at me. "You want me to write them down, the children, by name?" I nod. "Not ringed twice," she says, low. "Just named." "Yes." Mara comes up the line, wiping her hands on her apron, sees the two columns, the threes, the spearman drilling a coffer at his elbow. Her mouth thins. And when the tower asks what we are, she says, "What do we tell them?" A fair question, a dangerous one. A name draws fire, but a thing with no name, no one defends. I chalk 3 strokes low on the riser of the step where boots won't smear them. Not a god's mark, a door. And through the door, a struck note bending back to true. Mara reads it slow. "The mending place," she says. The spearman stops his beats. The wet clay woman straightens. Down the line, heads turn, and a name nobody spoke an hour ago travels mouth to the broken gate. The informer hears it too. The band note in his chest jumps. Good, let him carry that home in his bones. The count he kept is a roster now, and the roster has a sword on the door. I sit on the cold step, chalk dust gray on my fingers. A woman with no gift drilling beside an old man who swore the gift couldn't be taught. A drunk made sober, holding the gate. A healer at my shoulder, a grandmother turning a kill list into a register of the living. My last bridge came apart because one joint bore a load it was never built to carry, alone. Not this one. Every piece here takes weight off every other. Pull one out, and the rest still stand. The deaf boy they stepped over like a loose board built that, on a shrine step, in one afternoon, with a stub of chalk. 40 days left on Ren's clock. For the first time since I woke in this small, silent body, I am not the only thing holding her up. Ren is standing in the inner doorway. She's got one hand flat on the frame, holding herself up, the gray blanket slung off one shoulder, and she's looking at me. Her corse sits low and blue under her ribs. I feel it from across the room. A settled swell. No crack walking, no red knot dragging. She smiles, small, crooked. The first real one since I woke in this body. I lift a hand to wave her back behind the stone. Then the step goes wrong under my heels. One rider, hard, climbing the ridge road. Under it, a second drum I don't like. Feet far off, many, keeping time. I press my palm to the cold stone and read it up through my wrist. Gun reads my face instead, and is already turning to the gate. The scout comes through the broken gate at a walk. I clocked his hum 2 days back, that dirty tower band laced under his breath. He doesn't draw. He doesn't run. He walks like a man delivering a bill. One fist holds a roll of paper. The other holds something small. He throws the small thing down on the step. A whistle, carved bone, a child's. The wax plug still snug in its throat. I set that plug myself 3 days ago for a boy 2 farms out. Mara snatches it up. Her face goes the color of the chalk dust on my fingers. I can't hear the scout's mouth. I don't need to. The captive informer pinned under Gon's blue blade mouths the words along with him, lips moving, band notes spiking in his chest, the shapes crawling up through the step into my teeth. The grandmother reads the unrolled paper and her hand starts to shake. I read her lips. I read Mara's. I build it off 3 faces and 1 shaking hand. Hunters, massing on the valley road. More than I've got fingers. Mara grabs my shoulder and turns me. She holds the paper an inch off my nose and stabs a word with her nail. Then she pulls a stoppered vial out of the scout's dropped bundle. Black wax, no label. And her whole arm goes rigid. I take it. I feel through the glass. The stuff inside hums wrong on purpose. It's tuned. A note built to crawl into a healed core and walk it apart, joint by joint. The exact water I drowned in. Vask isn't waiting on a slow crack anymore. He's bottled the bridge. 1 draw and a mended core tears its own seams. The scout lifts his chin toward the ridge. Smoke. A black column, standing straight in the dead cold air, climbing off a roof 2 ridges out. The boy's roof.
The whistle's roof.
He says one more thing. The grandmother's voice cracks on it. Mara's lips shape it slow so I catch every letter. We have your mended one. Send the marked child, or we burn through the lot of them, 1 core at a time. The marked child. 47, ringed twice. The child whose hand is closing on my sleeve right now because she felt me go to stone. The scout turns to leave, unhurried, like he's done me a kindness. I don't watch him go. I'm reading the floor. Behind him, down the valley road, the drum of feet is louder in the rock than it was a breath ago. Closer. Steady, fanning wide off the road into the fields on both sides of us. They're not coming to the gate. They're already spreading to take the whole valley at once. The scout isn't through the gate before a horse fills it. Vask Korin rides in over his own herald. He can't stand long now. I read it 3 nights ago, the split jar core, welded crooked, 4 stolen pitches trapped and shrieking inside it. 1 slot still cut empty at 47 and hungry for my sister. He coughed red chi and fled me blind. He came back on horseback. He brought the whole tower at his stirrups. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need a mouth I can't hear. In his hands, a clay jar, fat as a melon, sealed in the same black wax as the vial cooling in my palm. He walks the horse to the old well post, the frozen post I tapped his own leak through. He lifts the jar over his head. I'm already moving, too slow. Small legs, cold stone. He brings it down on the post. The jar bursts. I don't hear the crack. I feel the note it lets loose. It pours into the well, into the wet rock under the whole valley, and it rings, 1 filthy, tuned wave climbing up through the stone into the soles of every standing foot. 47 hurts! The water I drowned in poured into the ground we farm. Gon drops his blade. He grabs his own chest. His cured core. The clean gold swell I tuned true 2 days back. Shudders. Catches the wrong note and starts to slip its seams. Across the shrine, the wet clay woman folds over her knees. The spearman's hum cracks down the middle. Every core I mended is singing the killer's pitch back at him because he sang it into the bones of the place beneath them. Mara lunges for Gon with both hands flat, the way I taught her, pressing to damp him. And her own face buckles because the notes got hooks in her too. He didn't come for 1 child. He came to rot the lot at once and make me stand in the middle of it and feel each one go. Then I feel the worst one. Ren's hand is still fisted in my sleeve. Her core was a settled, low blue swell. Now it's climbing. The note in the rock drags her pitch up off the floor, blue going green, green reaching for the white-hot 47 that splits her open. Force ripening. He isn't waiting 40 days. He's pulling her clock with both hands. She makes a sound. I feel it in her wrist, not my ears. I clamp my palm flat on her sternum. The crack I stopped is straining at its stitches. The poison note shoves up. My damping shoves down. The 2 waves grind together under my hand, and my hand is losing ground by the breath. Vask wheels the horse. He looks down at me, the deaf boy who burned him in his own well. and his split mouth shapes one word slow, just for me, so I read every letter off his lips. Listen. Out past the broken gate, the drum of feet closes from 3 sides at once. The frozen stubble fills with tower hunters waiting in, more than I've got fingers, ringing the shrine tight while their master rots us hollow from the inside. Under my palm, Ren's core hits green and keeps climbing. The frozen stubble hands me their weight through the floor. 12 sets of boots, fanned wide, each footfall a pulse in the bedrock under my knees. One palm stays flat on the dirt so I can read them, the other won't leave Ren's chest. Her core's at green now and shoving for white, and the stitch I set in her sternum is straining like wet rope. I read the hunters as they come. I have to. You can't damp a wave you can't see. Most of them ring clean, tower cores tuned hard, packed tight, no slack to grab, hummed down to a flat, dangerous note. They come over the broken gate 3 abreast, spears low, folding the shrine shut from both flanks. Vask lifts 2 fingers off the rein. He points one man forward, far left, lean, maybe 30, an old scar splitting one eyebrow, and the second he crosses into the well-post's poison wash, I feel his core do what no clean core should. It doesn't just catch the note, it answers, because it's already torn. Halfway, a seam runs diagonal across the top of the swell, hair-thin, weeping key every single beat. Old damage, patched, repatched, sitting right at the edge of the killer's pitch on its own. Force-ripened weeks back, held together with stitches I can count. From here, days. He's got days before that seam runs the whole way and walks him apart from the inside. Behind me, Mara's got both hands flat on Gon's chest, arms shaking, her mouth working. Stay, stay, stay. Holding his gold core inside its skin. She doesn't see the lean man. I do. He steps in first, spear leveled at the altar, at me, at the gap where I hid her. A hunter by the gate cups his mouth. I read it off his lips, slow and clean. Ren. Point. Point man. The one you push in first to find the teeth. Vask knows what he pushed. He built that pitch. He's the only hand that bottles it. He looked at a man 3 days from tearing apart and aimed him at me anyway. Spear out, scar forward, a cracked core walked straight into the one place it'll burn fastest. Not a soldier. A match he's striking on my doorstep. Ren doesn't know. I see it in how he plants his feet, square and certain, like the ground's solid under him. He thinks the ache in his chest is winter. He thinks the master sent his best blade in first because he trusts it. The seam answers the well note, climbs. I watch the exact place it'll go, top third of the swell where the old patch kisses fresh poison. One hard lunge. Maybe 2. Then it tears, and a force-ripened core hitting 47 doesn't drop quiet. It throws the pitch outward, into every cracked thing standing near it. Into Gon, into the wet clay woman folded on her knees, into Ren, under my pinned hand. I could stop it. I know the spot. I know the damp, but my palm is full of my sister, and her clock is the one running fastest, and if I lift this hand one breath to reach his seam, she goes white before I'm halfway there. So I watch a man march himself into a bomb, and I do nothing. Vask isn't looking at Ren. The whole time he's looking at me, reading my face while his own man cooks toward the blast, waiting to see whether the deaf boy spends his hand on a stranger or keeps it clamped on the marked child. That's the trap, not the spear, not the ring of hunters tightening in the dark. The choice he's pressing into my chest with a dying man's body. Ren takes another step. The seam splits a thread wider. He's not a hunter. He's the fuse Vask lit and forgot, walking himself into the middle of everyone I've mended. Ren lunges, the spear drives flat for the altar gap, for Ren, and as he throws his whole weight behind it, the seam across his core splits open another thread. This is the breath, the one where his pitch tips over the edge. I lift my hand off my sister. Cold air hits the spot where my palm sat pinned an hour. Her stitch sings loose the instant I leave it. I feel it through my knees, through the floor, the wet rope strain about to part. And I let it. I let go of the only clock I've been guarding, and I throw both hands at the man trying to gut us. I get the wrist, behind the joint, where the arm has no leverage. The haft skids past my ear, splinters raking my cheek, the iron head burying itself in the altar wood a hand's width over Ren's hair. Now I'm in him. Through the skin of his forearm, down the bone, into the torn swell where his core howls up toward 47. I don't patch the seam. Patching only buys him the days he already spent. I do the other thing, the thing I learned reading Dead Steel. You don't brace against a wave, you meet it coming and shove it back inverted. I drive his pitch the wrong way, hard, all of it. Ren's spine bows. A sound tears out of him I can't hear, but feel come up through my locked hands, his whole frame ringing as the note in his chest folds over on itself and cancels. Then the field drops. Through my knees, the whole valley's hum sags. The well post still pours its poison into the bedrock, but the loudest, cracked thing in range has quit answering, quit throwing the killer's pitch outward, and without that mouth to amplify it, the wave goes thin. Ren's core stalls at the white line, holds, slides back toward green under no hand at all. I caught her by catching him. He's on his knees in front of me, both of us locked over the spear, and his eyes are doing something no tower face has done all night. The ache he blamed on winter is gone out of his chest. He feels the empty room where it lived. He looks down at himself like a man finding a knife already in his ribs, then up at me, the mute boy who reached inside a stranger and switched the dying off. His lips shape it slow. What did you do? Across the yard, Vask hauls himself upright in the saddle. He saw. He watched nothing but my face and my hands this whole siege, and now my hands are full of the fuse he lit, and it isn't burning. His split mouth peels back. He jabs 2 fingers at us and barks at the nearest hunters, and I read the order off the shape of it, ugly and quick. Cut him down. Both 2 spears swing off the altar and come for our backs. Ren feels the voice land, the master he marched in trusting, naming him meat in front of the line. He turns his head and watches his own brothers level their points at his spine, and the square certainty goes out of his shoulders all at once. He rips the spear free of the altar wood and stands. Not to run. He plants himself between me and the 2 closing in, butt of the haft tucked, scarred brow forward, and he throws something back at the horseman that drags the whole yard quiet enough that I read it off the air. You knew. You sent me in to rot. The first hunter doesn't slow. Ren takes him low, under the guard, and drops him into the frozen stubble before the man's spear ever comes level. One of theirs fighting ours, in front of all of them. Down the line, the other 10 falter. I feel it through the dirt. 10 hard cores hitching mid-step, looking from their fallen brother to the boy on his knees who turned him. Vask wheels the horse, screaming through the cough that's bending him double, and his jar core flickers 1 slot wide and empty. Ren's hand fists tighter in my sleeve. Behind me, Gon's gold core surges up under Mara's palms, awake, hungry to move. 10 spears in the dark, a harvester rotting on his horse, and for the first time since the gate broke, the ring around us isn't tightening. It's deciding. So I get my feet under me, and I show them what we are. The 10 spears come back level, all at once. A fence of iron sliding out of the dark toward our backs. Ren's still on his feet beside me, chest heaving, the hunter he dropped, writhing in the frozen stubble. He twists his head and throws words I have to read off his split lips. They move on his whistle. 1 note, he pipes. They step. I feel it before his mouth finishes the shape. A thin, hard pitch threads up through the dirt from the well post, from Vask's mouth, and every one of the 10 cores leans into it on cue. 1 man conducting 10. That's the whole trick of the tower. The thing I drowned, never knowing. So I take the baton off him. I drop my free hand flat to the ground and shove the other back without looking until I find Gon's wrist. Gold core roaring, starved for this. I don't give him words. He's never needed mine. I tune him to the well-post's pitch and bend it a half-step sour. Gon goes off like a snapped cable. Behind me, the wet clay woman has both palms on the spearman's spine. The spearman has his on Mara, Mara hers on Ren. 4 mended nobodies in a chain, and for 2 days I've drilled every one of them to hold a single note and pass it down the line. So I pull the soured pitch up through the floor and feed it into them, body to body, and they throw it back at the hunters as one wave. The 10 falter mid-step. I feel their cores catch the wrong note and stagger. The leash Vask had on them gone slack all at once. Every man a half beat off inside his own chest. A spear dips, a knee folds. The wall that was closing on our backs splits straight down the middle. Then Gon and Ren pour into the gap together, the drunk and the turncoat, and drive the broken line stumbling back toward the gate it crawled through. Vask pipes again. I feel the note leave him, the same command, but the edge of it shaking now. This time I'm waiting in the dirt. I catch the whole shape of it and I hold it, every tooth and corner, banked somewhere behind my eyes where I can find it again whenever I want. His signal. Mine now. Then I send it home. I drive his own command note up the well post and into the leaking jar he calls a core. He bucks in the saddle. Red key sprays off his lips into the cold, that one empty slot in him gaping wide and wet, and the horse screams and wheels under a man who can't keep his seat. He hauls the reins around. He runs, not in any order. A bolt low over the horse's neck, the last of his hunters breaking after him into the black past the gate. I track his pitch shrinking down the valley, fast, aimed north toward whatever sits over him in the dark. We don't chase. We walk. Out past the smashed gate, into the open stubble where the tower could always see us. Gon with his spear, Ren bleeding at my shoulder, the wet clay woman, Mara with Ren on her hip. No shrine to crouch behind now, no furniture. A deaf boy and his mended strangers standing in the valley as a thing with a name for the whole dark to count. Ren's fist works loose of my sleeve and folds around 2 of my fingers. Ren drags a sleeve over his split brow and stares north, where the horse and its rider have already gone to nothing. His jaw locks. He turns and shapes it slow, so I can't mistake the read off his mouth. You think that was the tower? That was 1 rotting man and a dozen spears. His hand comes up, points after Vask, into the black. What he's gone to fetch doesn't need a whistle. Sevra Crimson. Ren drags the name off his split lip and points it north with his chin, into the black, where the horse went. I read it twice to be sure. He crouches and scratches a circle in the frost with a broken spear tip, then 9 marks around its rim, and his thumb stops on the 9th. 9th seat of the tower. The matron. His mouth shapes each word slow and huge, the way you'd talk to a deaf boy you needed to believe you. Vask ran to fetch her band. Mara shifts Ren higher on her hip and watches his hand move. Gon leans on the spear, blood drying black down his forearm, and his breath still saws in and out where the cough took him. He taps the 9 marks one by one, and what he shapes next he shapes twice so I can't pretend I misread it. Not 1 rotting man and a whistle. A strike band, 12 harvesters who move on her count, not their own. He flattens his palm over the whole circle. She doesn't pipe a note. She holds them all. I crouch beside his circle and lay 2 fingers flat on the cold dirt, and the valley answers the way it always does. Ren's core ticking thin behind me, Gon's gold roar, the well post still ringing where I soured it. 12 cores moving on 1 will. I've felt that shape before. It's the wave that walked my bridge apart, girder by girder, the day it put me in this small, dead-eared body. Ren's still talking, and I catch the tail of it off his lips, the part he didn't want to say. We can't outfight 12. No Vodichji. We can't. So I stopped doing the only thing these hands have done since the gate broke. Here's the thing, listener. For 2 days, every wave I bent went inward. into cracked cores, into Ren's chest, into the slow work of mending what the tower came here to break, a surgeon with one knife. The same note that knits a core shut will split one wide open if I aim it the other way, and I have been a coward about which way I point. Not anymore. I get up. I grab the wet clay woman by the wrist and set her 3 paces left of the well post. The mended spearman goes 3 behind her, Mara behind him, Gan at the end, all of them facing the broken gate. Strung along one line, I drag through the frost with my heel. They don't understand. The spearman opens his mouth to ask. I don't have words for him, so I drop into the dirt and feed one low pitch up through the soles of his feet. And his whole frame catches it and hums, eyes going wide, the note ringing out of his sternum into the woman ahead of him. She fumbles it, drops it. The wave dies in the gap between them, and the line goes slack. I move her half a step closer, just half. I tune the space between 2 bodies until the note leaving him arrives exactly as her own core swings open. And this time it doesn't die. It stacks, it doubles. It rolls down the line through 4 mended strangers and comes off Gon's gold core at the far end 3 times as hard as it left. The frost on the stubble jumps. Mara feels it climb through her feet and looks at me, and for once she isn't begging me to fix anyone. Gon grins through the blood. Ren just watches the spacing of them, the way the note swells the further down the line it walks. And I catch the moment he understands what I've built. Not 5 sick villagers in a row. A wave that grows the further it travels, aimed down the throat of whatever Vask brings back. I walk the line and tighten every gap by a heel's width, again, until the pitch comes off the far end clean and aimed and the whole field rings north on a single breath. Then Ren's small hand leaves Mara's shoulder, lifts, and stabs one finger at the dark, past the broken gate. I turn. Out in the black where Vask ran, 3 points of cold light have come up over the ridge, and they don't move the way a fleeing man moves. They drift even and together, evenly spaced, one count holding all 3. One of the 3 lights peels off the count and comes straight at us across the open field. It moves wrong. Too smooth, too level. A man who doesn't bob when he runs because nothing inside him flinches. A harvester. The other 2 hold the ridge and let him come, the way you toss one stone onto a frozen pond to hear whether it'll hold your weight. Ren grabs my shoulder. Behind the line. His split lip shapes it twice. I shrug him off and drop to one knee, both palms flat to the frost. The ground hands me his stride. Boot, 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 even as a smith's hammer falling on a peg. Underneath the boots is the thing I'm hunting. His core, a cold wheel of qui spinning hard and bright down in his chest, turning fast enough to feel through 40 paces of dirt. 2 days I've spent learning where a core wants to close. Watch, listener. Now I want the opposite. Every wheel has a speed it can't survive. I learned mine the night the tower's note found my bridge and walked the spans apart, one girder at a time. I just have to find his while he runs. I send a thread of pitch up through the soil to taste him. He swats it off. His wheel stutters, corrects, keeps coming. The curved blade clears his hip and catches starlight off the snow. Lower then. I push a second note and his core leans away from it. There. It doesn't like that side. I climb the pitch a hair at a time, hunting the exact speed that makes him shudder, and at 30 paces his stride breaks for half a beat, a scuffed boot, a hitch, and I know I've brushed the edge of it. 20 paces. I stop being gentle. I sink the note straight down and bounce it off the well post, still ringing behind me, and the 2 waves come racing back at each other through the bones of my knees and lock into one standing line, the peak of it nailed dead on the spot where his chest will be in a single breath. He runs into it. His wheel hits the peak and can't turn through. It catches its own rim. I feel the thing tear loose. Not a clean snap, but a long, shrieking unwind, metal screaming as it spins itself to pieces, the very sound my spans made coming down, span by span, the day the tower unmade what I used to be. The blade drops first. Then the man. He folds into the stubble, 8 paces short of the line, and goes still, frost smoking up off his open coat where all the heat walked out of him at once. Nobody breathes. Even the well post lets its ringing die. Gon looks at the dead harvester, then at me, blood gone black down his forearm, and whatever grin he wore is wiped flat. He's staring at the small, deaf boy who just did with 2 fingers what a fence of 12 spears couldn't. Mara's hand clamps white over Ren's. The mended spearman steps clean off his mark in the line and won't step back. I push up onto my feet. My legs don't fully straighten under me, and I let them shake, because the alternative is letting them see how much that cost. Out on the ridge, the 2 cold lights haven't moved. They watched their man come apart, and they didn't charge, didn't scatter, didn't so much as dip. They sat there in the dark and read me, learned the shape of what I am the way I read the shape of them. Then one light wheels and slides back down the far slope, fast, north, carrying the news home to the count that holds 12. The other doesn't run. It climbs higher up the ridge, brighter, settling in to wait for something. The ridge tips over all at once. Not 3 cold points now, but a long row of them cresting the rise together, pouring down the slope, even-spaced, one count holding every boot. The sky behind them has gone the gray of wet ash. Near morning, they came back for us. Vask is at the head of them. I'd know that dead smooth stride across a mile of churned mud. The man who charged us and ran is back, his core welded into a hard, bright knot that burns colder than the 11 strung out behind him. His blade's already out. He doesn't bob when he runs. Nothing in him flinches, and that has always been the whole trouble with him. Ren's hand closes on my sleeve. 12. His split lip shapes slow, then again. 12. We are 7. I pull my arm free and look down my own line instead, because 7 cores wound to 1 pitch are not 7 frightened people with 7 spears. The mended spearman still stands 3 paces off his mark, butt of the spear grounded, eyes nailed to the dead harvester smoking in the stubble. I cross to him. I flatten my palm on his chest and let him feel his own wheel turning clean under it. The crack I closed 2 nights back, true again. And I point hard at the scuffed frost where his boots belong. He doesn't move. So I push the note up through my fingers, and his core leans toward the others down the line the way cold iron leans to a lodestone, and his jaw works, and he steps back onto his mark. 6 cores strung across the broken gate, and me on one knee at the foot of them. Look close, listener. This isn't a fence anymore. It's a row of transmitters, each one wound tight to its own pitch, each one holding its breath on my count to throw the wave north. I touch each in turn through the frost and tune the gaps shut. Clay woman. Mara, with Ren's small wheel guttering under her palm. Gon's gold roar anchoring the far end. Out on the open ground, Vask lifts the curved blade flat over his head, and the whole count freezes on his raised fist. 12 cold wheels hung dead still in the half-dark, waiting for it to drop. He shapes words at me across the field. Big. Slow. Twice, so the deaf boy can't pretend to miss them. You killed one of mine. His mouth twists wider. I brought 12. I don't shape anything back. I press both palms flat to the frozen field and find all 12 wheels, turning at once. The brightest of them, out front, is the one I want. His fist falls. The count breaks into a run. 12 dead smooth strides hammering down the slope as a single body, one wall of weight rolling at 7 of us, and the ground throws every boot of it up through my knees. I drop my own fist, and the line throws. 6 cores fire north on the count, the waves stacking as they run, climbing until the whole field slams forward into the front rank, and 2 harvesters stumble, knees buckling, before that single will hauls them upright, and the men behind close the hole and keep coming. So that's the shape of it now. Not a boy against a man, a wall against a wall, and theirs is bigger. I let their wall come. I'm not hunting the wall. I climb the pitch toward the bright knot at its head, toward Vask, toward the place where he tore his own core loose and hammered it back together. And there, under the new bright shell, runs a seam that doesn't ring true. A scar laid into the spinning wheel. He built himself back crooked and never heard it. 40 paces out, his blade already rising from my skull, he can't feel me find it. The stutter in Vask's core comes once a turn, regular as a dropped hammer, a place the wheel lurches off its center and slaps back into it. I have it now. Under the hard new shell, he beat around himself. The seam throws the spin out of true at the top of every revolution, the same small flinch over and over, and he never heard it because he can't hear anything but his own strength. 40 paces. The curved blade tips over off its arc and starts down for my skull. I don't lift a hand to it. I can't outfight him. Never could, not with steel. So I flatten my palms to the frozen field and count the gap between his lurches the way I once counted a girder flexing under load. No well post this time. No soured iron to wring a note off of. 6 cores still scream north down my line, and a man is charging the gap between them, and I've got nothing to bend a wave against. So I borrow one. I throw a note up the line into Gon's gold roar at the far end and fold it straight back off him, tuned down to the pitch of Vask's stutter. The wave runs out low across the open ground, under the charge, hunting one crooked wheel out of 12. Gon's mouth comes open. He feels it leave him and doesn't know what I've spent him on. 30 paces, and the note finds Vask's core at the top of its turn and shoves. Nothing he can feel. The wheel takes the push and spins on, but the seam won't shed it clean. It keeps a sliver of that wave, carries it round to the top again, and drops it right where my next push lands. 2 waves stacked inside one wheel via DJJ. And I know this one from the inside, listener, because I was the span that same note walked apart, the night the tower folded me, girder by girder. 20 paces. His stride breaks. One boot landing wrong in the stubble. The dead smooth gait I'd know across a mile of churned mud suddenly not smooth, his mouth still hanging on the last of the taunt. I push again on the count of his stutter. The held waves climb past anything that Scar can carry around. 10 paces. The blade is still up. His eyes come off my chest and find my face, and the sneers gone out of them. There's a question in it now. I close my fist. The wheel tears along the weld, not the clean fold I gave his man 2 nights back. This is a wrench, a spin ripping itself open at the scar, the exact shriek my bridge made the night the tower walked it down. The blade drops out of his hand. It buries point first in the frost, a stride short of my knee, and stands there shivering. Vask folds at the waist. Both hands clamp over his own chest, clawing like he could hold the wheel together from the outside. His knees hit the ground. That cold, bright knot Vadajo, the one that burned harder than all 11 strung out behind him. Gutters, and won't catch. I feel Sever reach for him. Her will comes down the field, the way it hauled the staggered 2 upright, reaching past 11 good wheels to seize the broken one and lift it back into her count. There's nothing left to seize. Her grip slides off the torn seam like a palm off wet ice. And for the first time since the ridge tipped over, one of her 12 drops clean out of her hand. He gets up, not to fight. He claws backward off his knees, leaves the buried blade standing where it fell, and runs Vavad DJ away from us now, up the slope, that perfect stride gone to a lurching scramble through the stubble toward the black line of the tower. His mouth keeps working the whole way, big, slow, thrown back over his shoulder twice, so even the deaf boy can't miss a word of it. She'll burn you. The 9th seat will burn this whole valley down to the frost. Behind him, the charge comes apart. 11 wheels that ran as one body lose the knot that led them. Break stride, fan wide, and stall 10 paces off our line with no single wheel out front to spend them. Then the light on the ridge, the one that climbed higher and sat down to wait, stands up. It starts down the slope toward us, alone, in no hurry at all. The buried blade quits shivering and stands dead still in the frost, astride from my knee. Ren reaches it first. He won't touch it. He spits a thread of blood off his split lip, stares at the curved steel standing alone in the dirt, then turns and shapes the words slow enough that even I catch everyone. You did that. No hand on him. Nothing. The sky over the ridge has gone the gray of wet ash. Morning at last, hauling itself up after the longest night this valley has ever worn. The 11 are still out there, 10 paces off, fanned wide, their wheels turning bright and aimless with no knot left to lead them. The mended spearman keeps his point level at the whole stalled row. Mara pushes up the line with the child clamped to her chest, and her lips come fast and unsteady. They'll hear about this. Every hold from here to the river will know what one broken gate did to 12 of them. She's not wrong. 2 nights back, we were 7 frightened cores hiding behind splintered wood, beneath anyone's notice. And now a name comes down off that ridge to collect us in person, and you do not send a seat to settle a debt worth nothing. Gon sags against his own spear, the gold in him gone thin and ragged where I tore it loose, coughing wet into the back of his wrist. He still doesn't know what left him or why. I owe him for that and for 100 things I haven't the breath to count. Then the child against Mara's chest goes quiet, and the field falls out of me. 2 fingers to Ren's sternum. Under the small ribs, the wheel turns, slow, then slower, the thin tick I've shimmed and propped for 2 days now dragging hard at the bottom of every revolution. Then it slips, 1 notch down, past the line I swore I'd hold it above, into the low, ugly register where a core stops being a child's and starts being a clock. Mara feels my hand stop. Her mouth makes 1 word against the dawn. Can you die? I don't lie to her. I shake my head once. 47, that's where the small wheel is headed, Vaniji, and across the field, behind the line, in the dark of the house where she sleeps, my sister's core already turns on that exact pitch, the one note I have never once stopped feeling in my teeth, the wave the tower walked down my bridge with, girder by girder, the night it folded me out of steel and into this dead-eared boy. Ren is sliding toward it. My sister is already sitting on it. I count the long dark backward, and the number that once sat a comfortable distance off comes up flush against the morning. Tonight ends day 40. Tomorrow is the last one I was given. The light on the ridge keeps coming. It doesn't hurry. It steps down through the stubble, past its own 11 stalled soldiers without so much as turning ahead, with the unbothered walk of someone collecting a thing already decided to be hers. 1 night stands between me and 47. The last time that note came for me, I was a mile of iron over black water, and I never even got to scream. Her boot comes down on the frost-killed seam that marks our line, toe to the dirt, and there it stops, not 1 inch over. Up close, the 9th seat stands smaller than any soldier she owns. Gray coat, no blood on it, a collar of red thread knotted at the throat. Behind her, Vask comes on his knees through the stubble, his rebuilt wheel grinding crooked at the weld I tore, hauled forward on a tether of her will I can see strung taut in the cold air. She hasn't let him stand. His mouth works at the back of her coat, begging something she never turns to hear. Her eyes go down our line. Ren's split lip. Gon bent over his spear, Mara with the child clamped to her chest. They pass every one of us and settle on the smallest body standing here, on me. She crouches, brings her face level with mine, close enough that her breath stirs against my cheek, and her lips open slow. Each word shaped wide and clean, deliberate, because someone has already told her the boy is deaf and takes his words off the mouth. There you are, she says. The little surgeon who unwinds wheels with no hand. I don't move. My fingers hang open at my sides, and holding them open costs more than a fist ever would. Vask was rebuilt twice over. I have never lost one off my own count. She tips her head a degree. You took him off it standing in the dirt. Show me how. Behind her ribs, the core turns, and it turns on the note I know in my teeth, Ujelo patient, the tower's own pitch, the wave that walked my mile of iron apart, girder by girder. My jaw locks down against it. She watches the lock happen and smiles like I've answered her. Then she lifts two gloved fingers barely toward the house at our backs, toward the dark where Ren lies propped, where the wheel I can't hold has slid all morning, toward her note. The slide stops. Mara's head whips around. She feels it come up through her own hands. The dragging tick under Ren's ribs lifts one notch, then two, off the ugly register into a child's clean turning, and Sevra hasn't so much as glanced at the door. She does it the way you'd straighten a picture on a wall you're walking past. Mara lunges for the house. 3 steps, no more. Then something catches her mid-stride, the same taut nothing that drags Vask, and she stops dead astride from her own door, the baby jolting against her, her boots skidding on frost with nowhere to go. I can hold the girl there, Sevra sees, never looking at either of them. And the other one, the child in the second house, whose wheel already sits on mine. She lets it land. She wants it to. You've felt her 40 days, and you cannot raise her a single notch. I raised yours without turning my head. Her fingers fall. Ren's wheel drops. 1 notch, then the next, sliding again toward the pitch that killed me, and Mara makes a sound I don't hear but feel buckle the ground under my knees. Give me the seeing, the matron says, soft. Every word slowed down for me. How a deaf boy reads the seam, no master alive confined. Teach me that. And both of them breathe past tonight. Her glove opens between us, palm up, empty. Refuse, and I cut the gift off your body the slow way and let the two of them turn until they stop. Vask gets his face up over her shoulder at last. His torn wheel shrieks its crooked note, and his mouth shapes one word at me, savoring each piece of it. Beg. The matron stands, smooths her coat, and looks at the graying sky. You have until the dark, she says. The small one won't. The frost between my knees splits in a long, white seam. Ren's wheel just hit the floor of itself. That's the killing note arriving. The tower's own pitch, here now, climbing up through the dirt the way it once climbed a mile of riveted iron. 47, come for a child this time. Mara screams something I can't hear and can't reach. Sevra's tether holds her astride from the door, boots skating on frost. The matron doesn't even watch it work, vi DJ. She keeps her gray eyes flat on me, pressing that wheel down with one slack hand, curious what the deaf boy does when the note he fears lands on a girl. I don't go for the house. I go for the ground. My palm slaps flat to the dirt. Ren, I shape it wide so he reads it off my mouth, the line. All of you. Now. He gets it before my lips close. He drops to a knee and drives his core into a hard, even beat, and I feel it travel, gone next, coughing wet, his torn gold rolling in under mine, the clay woman, the mended spearman, even Mara pinned and shaking, throwing her pulse down into the mud because it's the one part of her Sevra hasn't caught. 6 cores, 1 floor of rhythm strung through frozen ground, and I stand in the middle reading every strand. Here's what the tower never learned. You can't lift a wheel off 47 by force. I've tried 40 days on my own sister, and it slides back every time, water finding the low place. So I don't lift. I find Ren's wheel down at the bottom, juddering on the killing note, and instead of dragging it up, I climb onto the note with it. Match it. Dead on. 47 against 47. For 1 heartbeat, the whole valley rings the same pitch. Mine, hers, the tower's, and Sevra's chin comes up a fraction. She felt that. The boy stepping into the fire instead of away. Then I shoved the lattice a half step out of phase. 6 borrowed beats. Everyone tuned a hair off Ren's failing wheel. Under it, over it, around it. So the note that wants to tear her apart meets its own shape coming back and folds into nothing. Where her core was flying open, the counterwave catches each loose strand and pins it into a tighter weave. A stronger weave, a wheel built to spin on the very note that should stop it. Sevra's hand closes hard. I feel her shove down. She isn't curious anymore. The wheel sags. I plant the lattice and hold. Gon coughs, and the gold guts in his beat bdga. I steal the slack off the spearman to cover the gap, never letting the phase drift, arms locked, sweat going to ice in my eyebrows. She presses. I hold. She presses harder, both hands now, the red thread at her throat drawing taut, and Ren's wheel grinds between the two of us like a stone caught in a mill race. Hold, I tell them with my open palm. Hold the flaw! Ren's split lip runs fresh. The clay woman's knuckles go white in the dirt. Nobody breaks. And Ren's wheel stops sagging. It catches the new shape. It takes it. The shutter smooths out. The torn seam knits closed. And on the killing note, the exact pitch that walked me apart over black water, a child's core begins to turn clean and round and true. In the dark of the first house, Ren breathes. I feel it punch out of her, one whole shaking gulp of air, and her wheel sings, even, bright, riding 47, like it was forged there. Mara folds against the tether that still holds her and sobs into her own shoulder. The matron doesn't move. She's got both hands clamped on a wheel that won't fall anymore. And for the first time since she stepped down off that ridge, something crosses her unbloodied face. The look of fingers that just closed on empty air. She straightens. The tether on Ren snaps loose. There's nothing left under it to hold. The note that ended you, she says slowly, mouth shaped wide, and you set a child singing on it. Her head tilts a degree. Then you'll teach me after all, or I'll take it the slow. She stops. Because I'm not watching her face. I'm watching past the red thread at her throat, into the thing turning behind her ribs, that gorged, overfull, stolen wheel she's been pressing me with all morning. And for the first time, I can see exactly where every borrowed note she owns is bolted on. Not one of them sits true. Her thumb hooks under the red thread at her collar and twists it tighter, and down its length a row of small knots draws up hard against her windpipe. Each knot a wheel she swallowed, leashed to that throat. She's reaching for fresh grip. She means to crush some other thing of mine until the deaf boy finally kneels and teaches. Let her reach. I turn the whole floor on her. 6 cores still humming under my palm, and now a 7th. Ren's, clean and bright, riding 47 without a stutter. All of it strung through the frozen mud and aimed for the first time all morning at the thing turning behind the matron's ribs. I read it the way I once read a bad weld by lamplight. Her wheel isn't one wheel. It's a dozen stolen ones crammed into a single hoop, each spinning its own borrowed pitch, not one of them sharing a center. A span built from other men's girders, bolted crooked, standing only because nobody ever pushed back along the grain. So, I push. I catch the first node, a thin, high whine she peeled off some river healer, and I match it dead on, then lean it a half step into the note beside it. The 2 pitches meet wrong. Her shoulder jerks like a hook caught it. Next, a soldier's hard-fast wheel, low in her chest. I fold it up into the one above and hold them there, beat grinding on beat, until something deep in her sternum lurches off true and slaps back. Sevra's flat gray eyes finally change. Her free hand quits clawing at Ren's empty air and clamps flat over her own breastbone. Stop. Mouth stretched wide. The first thing she's ever asked me for. I don't. She shoves back down the lattice phobia DJ, and that's the whole gift, that push, because her power has no node to stand on, and every grain of force she spends runs straight back up her own crooked bolts. I'm not breaking her. I just handed each stolen note the one thing it never had, its own reflection, walking home along the wire. The red thread snaps. 1 knot, then 3, then the whole strand whipping off her collar into the frost, and with each that flies a wheel tears loose inside her, unhoused, screaming at a pitch I feel in my back teeth, never hers to begin with. A nosebleed sheets down over her lip. She doesn't wipe it. Her knee buckles. She catches herself on the dead seam at the line, one glove splayed in the white, and for a breath the small gray woman who walked down off the ridge is just a body fighting to stay upright over a chest that's coming apart. She turns her head toward the 11. I see the command shape on her mouth. Take the house. But the wheel that carries a matron's will out to her hounds is unspooling in her ribs as she spells it, and the words leave her and reach no one. 11 bright cores stand off the line, stalled, waiting for a leash that just frayed through. She tries once more, both hands at her own chest now, pressing inward, as if she could clamp the dozen torn notes back into one hoop by main strength, and I feel her core gutter. Swell, gutter again, every borrowed grain fighting every other for a center that was never built. It doesn't hold. It was never going to hold. 40 days I failed to lift one true wheel by force. She spent years stacking stolen ones and never once asked whether they'd sit straight. The gorged core lets go, not with a flash, with a long, ugly shudder that rolls up through the mud and into my own palm, a structure failing the way I died. Piece tearing from piece, the load finding every crooked joint at once. The thread knots scatter across the frost. Sevra Crimson goes down to both knees on the line she stopped at. Gray coat pooling, hands open and empty, the whole grip the tower kept on this valley running out of her into the cold ground. The hum of her drops off the lattice. Gone. For one heartbeat, nothing in the valley moves but Wren's breath behind me, even and bright through the open door. Then the nearest harvester shifts his weight off the back foot, blade still in his fist. He looks from his fallen matron to the deaf boy crouched over a floor of singing cores, and he takes one slow step across the line toward me, and I cannot read off his mouth whether he's coming to cut my throat or lay that blade in the dirt. His boot stops a hand's breadth from the lattice, and the blade hangs at the end of his arm, edge down, catching the flat gray light off the frost. I don't pull my palm off the dirt. I read him instead. His core is a plain soldier's wheel. One honest pitch, no stolen knots, and right now it's stuttering, dragging at every turn off its center. He looks at Sevra down on both knees, emptied. He looks at the deaf boy crouched over 7 singing cores. The blade tip dips, lifts, dips. So I give him the only word I have. I lift one finger off the frost and set it down again. Light. And through the whole strung floor I push Wren's wheel, the killing note, 47, sung clean and even. Up, out of the ground, and into the soles of his boots. He feels it. It hits him in the shins, climbs, reaches the broken rhythm behind his ribs. His mouth comes open. The man is standing inside the exact note built to fold a body apart, girder from girder, and it isn't folding him, it's holding him up. The blade leaves his hand, it doesn't drop. He sets it down, slow, edge into the snow, like laying a tool back on the bench. Then his knee comes down on the line Sevra stopped at, and his head bows with it, and his stuttering wheel catches one half-beat against the floor I'm holding and steadies. Down the stalled rank, a second blade hits the frost, a third. They come off the line one at a time. Not charging now, walking, wait, set careful, the way men cross a span they don't yet trust. And each one kneels where the last one knelt until the white between us is crowded with bent backs and grounded steel. I spread my fingers in the mud. I catch each kneeling wheel by its honest pitch and pull it a hair onto the floor's beat. The first lesson, the seeing, handed down free to the men who laid their blades in the dirt. The thing she came to tear out of me by force, I give to the ones who knelt. Vask is still on the snapped tether, forearms sunk in the mud. He lifts his torn welded core toward me, the wheel I broke at dawn, and shapes it plain so the deaf boy can read it off his lips. Mend me. Begging me now, not her. I hold his eyes, and don't answer yet. I just keep the floor humming under all of them. V. Then, something hits the packed earth behind me. Fast, light. A drum of small feet I feel come up through my knees. I turn. Ren is in the doorway of the second house. Up off the floor of herself, the seam in her chest knit white and shut. Her wheel spinning so bright and loose, it lights the whole strand under my hand. She sways on the threshold once, then she's running. Straight across the frost, past the kneeling men who marched down here to burn her house, right at me. And she hits my chest hard enough to rock me back on my heels, both fists knotted in my coat, her face wet against my collar. I get one arm around her, the other stays flat to the dirt, because I'm still holding it. 7 cores, and a dozen more bowed into the frost, every honest wheel, and every begging one strung through the same frozen ground into one floor that does not buckle. Ren is on his feet, mouth working, telling the kneeling band what my throat never could. Mara has gone quiet in her doorway. Gon's gold core, thin and ragged, leans its weight on mine and stops shaking. I was a mile of iron once. That note walked me apart, joint by joint, and I felt every rivet let go. And I went down into the black water, certain that nothing I ever built would carry weight again. Now grown men cross a line toward me, and the line carries them. The note that killed me sings under all our feet at once, full load on every strand, and not one of us folds. Ren tips her face up and shapes a word against my jaw where I can feel it. Stay. I press my palm harder into the frost, take the whole span onto my back, and let it stand.